Hey everyone, welcome back to Low Budget Logistics, your logistics and supply chain explainer. Today is a week past Amazon Prime Day, but it really is a worthwhile topic to discuss because it talks about the other sort of half of the supply chain, right? So you've all seen the video, Economics Loves the Supply Chain. And so obviously, right, supply is one half of sort of the fundamental part of economics of supply and demand and the relationship between those two things. Now, so if the supply chain is getting the things to the demand, we should understand demand because demand is sort of a weird thing. And Amazon Prime Day provides us a really interesting lens to look into demand. So we'll kind of get to that first. Thank you so much for joining me in the video. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment down below if you have anything, and we'll kind of get into it. So what you're seeing here, right, Prime Day, we're talking about money. Always get better feedback when I have money up. But let's talk about what demand is as a thing. So demand, as you kind of an informal definition, is the amount of people that are willing to buy from you and the amount of things that they want to buy. So that's a very shorthand definition. There's a lot of other things about it. We've talked a bit about how to price your stuff to sort of maximize getting the most money for the things that you're selling. We've talked about that, but there are times when you're going to exceed your ability to provide things for them, right? So sometimes in demand, you can have an overabundance of demand that supply just cannot meet, right? So let's say there's a really great example. One time, Princess Kate, she wore some dress that was relatively inexpensive dress, just sort of offhand, right? Wore it, and that seller could not make enough, didn't have enough in stock, have inventory in stock to meet this crazy worldwide demand that happened after Princess Kate wore the dress. So that's where a trend happens. It happens really quickly for some sort of unknown reason, and then just gets kind of crazy, right? And then you just can't make enough, and you can't really capitalize on that trend, right? You can't capitalize on that demand because you don't have supply. You can't sell the thing. You can't sell something to someone if you don't have the thing, right? It's sort of fundamental. And then unfortunately, you lose out on money. So, but there are other times where demand it typically will increase at a very logical time. So one of which, at least in the e-commerce world, is the holiday time frame. Now, I'm really specifically referring to the time between Black Friday and Christmas. For a lot of reasons, there's a lot of gifting periods during that time, and for a long time, at least the last 20 years or so, Black Friday has sort of been the kickoff for that thing. We have seen that trend starting earlier. Now, I should look at my little handy graph here. What typically happens with e-commerce is that during this period, your sales are going to be running at a relatively similar rate as they have been basically all year. And then at some point in time, the holiday kind of peak period will kick off, and then you're going to jump really quickly within a period of days up to some new running standard. And the change between there and there is difficult for a lot of companies because there's a lot of excess demand that happens during that time that is kind of difficult to plan for. Not necessarily plan for because we know it's going to happen, but we don't know how much it's going to happen. And the other side is you're not going to build your facilities around the 6-week period between after Thanksgiving and to Christmas. There's just not a way to do that. It does not make business sense. So you have to be flexible with the things that you have available to you, and then you start adding different things that you can do relatively easily, right? So say you're running an 8 or a 10-hour day through a warehouse, you might run 24, you might add extra shifts, you might change up how your packaging works just to sort of make things go faster through there and kind of increase your throughput. Those are all things that you can do. Sometimes though, you just can't. And it's a way of life. You're just going to have to roll a balance day over day over day. And then hopefully at some point demand will kind of slow and you'll be able to catch up and still get customers their products on time. On-time delivery is another thing that we'll talk about. But another tricky thing that's happening, at least with Prime Day, is that they're shifting when demand happens. Now, again, let's assume that they know, right, because Amazon is full of really smart people and they have a lot of mathematicians and so on and so forth that can do this type of thing. They know, okay, we're running at this level. At some point, we're going to shift because everyone's going to start buying gifts from us. This is a good thing, and we're gonna hit at this new level. Well, for Amazon, right, this may be hundreds of millions of packages per day, and they may be, even though Amazon has one of the largest supply chains and largest kind of ways to get stuff to people, they're still might not be able to meet the demand on time, or at least to their internal goals. So they may not be able to meet that demand in the way that they want to. And so aside from adding new facilities, new distribution centers, there's really only one other way to do that thing. Now, what this is called, right, is a demand curve. And curve is sort of an economics term. It's very industry standard. What they're going to do is change the shape of this demand curve. Now, stay with me because this is important. So Prime Day happens, right, we'll call it happened recently, October 10th and 11th, which is before, right, this holiday sales period. So what they're doing is trying to pull some amount of this volume earlier in the season, boop, and they're going to change, stick with me, this demand curve, right? We can see, right, this line is the same, right? It's the same length of line, but it just shifted how it happened and when it happened. And it may look different, but you can see that it's going to change it. And that's what they're really doing on Prime Day, right? Aside from, increasing sales, right, making more money, yada, yada, yada. They're just pulling it early in the season when things are a little bit cheaper, right? Temp labor is not as expensive in the off season. Delivery is not as expensive in the off season. Things are not as chaotic. You can get volume through, and there's less timelines associated with getting shipments in October. So this is a really smart play. It's really interesting, and you may not think it, right? If you're just a customer, you're going, "Oh man, there's sales. I'm going to buy something." Well, they're pulling that demand forward, right? So in the case of like me and my family, I have 3 children, one of which is a little boy, and he loves Paw Patrol, and he has been telling me for days, weeks rather, how much he wants the new Paw Patrol aircraft carrier, which is insane. And we're not going to buy it for him. Sorry, buddy. You don't watch this anyways. But my entire house will only require one of those things, right? And so the expectation, or at least the thought at Amazon is, if we can pull that forward, via a sale or what have you, then it's one less thing that we're going to need to ship later. And for me, right, I only require one of those items in my entire house. So if I buy it in October or if I buy it in November, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm still going to get the one thing that I want well before the Christmas holiday season. And so that's sort of what they're doing. They're playing with things. They're trying to manipulate the demand curve in ways that are beneficial for themselves. Other companies do the same thing, right? Take the same idea. And typically what they'll do is go, okay, if this sale hit at a certain number, then we can logically assume that the rest of the holiday sales period will be some other number that is in correlation with that number, right? So at an e-commerce company that I used to work for, we had a huge sale on Halloween. And what we would do, that would be the start of our peak season. And from there, we could go, okay, our sales were, 10% greater than what we had been doing all year. And we can expect that our holiday sales are going to be 10% greater as a result of that. And there's a lot of things that you can sort of do. You can maybe get new product in time to meet that expected demand. Or if your forecasts were off, because forecasts are typically happening at the quarters or at the beginning of the year, you can start to shift your forecast and say, ooh, we may need to juice some of our sales in this holiday period to make that number because we're going to come a little bit short. There's a lot of things that happen. Prime Day is a really interesting sort of example of that. And I'm sure that the guys at Amazon are really focused on this and really understanding that. And they're really analyzing their forecasts. You'll probably see some news coming out in the next few weeks on how Prime Day did, and that will give shareholders a good idea of what they should expect the company will be doing in the coming weeks and months. So all that being said, it's a good one, bit more nerdy than usual. I hope you enjoyed it though. Please like the channel, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And all that being said, thank you so much and have a great day.